This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. I knew something was wrong the moment she walked through the door. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her lipstick smudged, and there was a faint scent of cologne on her clothes. I didn't wear cologne. "Late night?" I asked casually, leaning back in my chair, watching her carefully. She barely glanced at me as she kicked off her heels. "Bible study ran late, then we grabbed dinner. You know how it is." I did know how it was. Bible study used to end at 8, yet for the past few months she'd been walking in after midnight like it was normal. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice steady. "Smells like someone spilled cologne on you." That's when she stiffened. Not guilty, not nervous, just defensive. "You're seriously paying attention now?" she scoffed, crossing her arms. "Maybe if you weren't always at the office, you'd actually know what's going on in my life." That wasn't an answer. That was a deflection. And I recognized it for exactly what it was. If I pushed her, she'd twist the story, turn it into an argument about me being paranoid, about me being distant, about me being the problem. So I didn't push. I just nodded. I had already started gathering evidence. I had already started my plan. But she had no idea. My name is Mike. I built my own consulting firm from the ground up. It wasn't easy. For the first few years, I barely slept, working 80-hour weeks to keep it afloat. My wife, Jen, was there through it all. Back in college, she seemed perfect, beautiful, supportive, someone who believed in my dreams. We married young. In the beginning, she was everything I thought a partner should be. When I struggled, she supported me. When I doubted myself, she encouraged me. She even put her career on hold to help me focus on mine. But the moment the business took off, things changed. She got deeply involved with the church. At first I didn't mind, but then she stopped asking about my day, stopped sharing hers. She became obsessed with image, posting Bible verses online, preaching about the sanctity of marriage, all while slowly pulling away from me. Then the lies started, the secrecy, the sudden interest in my finances, and finally the affair. I could have confronted her. I could have exploded in rage, but I knew better. I knew that wasn't how you dealt with people like Jen. So instead, I waited. I watched. And I built my case. It started small. Checking credit card statements, finding hotel charges and restaurant bills that didn't add up. Then I checked her location history on her iPad. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she spent 2 to 3 hours at the same apartment complex. So one Thursday, I left work early. I parked across the street from the complex and waited. Sure enough, she arrived. 10 minutes later, a man pulled up next to her. Tall, built like a gym rat, tribal tattoo down his arm. The kind of guy who thinks he's the main character in every room. She smiled at him the way she used to smile at me. They walked inside together, laughing. I clenched my fists against the steering wheel, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. But I didn't move. Rage is loud, revenge is quiet. So I lifted my phone and took the photos. This was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my office, staring at the pictures on my phone. My wife, holding hands with another man, laughing, walking into his apartment like she belonged there, like I didn't exist. But I didn't just feel anger. No, that would have been too simple. I felt something deeper, something colder. Betrayal. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. She had planned this. She had been lying to my face for months. And not just lying, she was preparing to leave me, waiting for the right time to file for divorce so she could take everything I had worked for. That was the part that twisted in my gut the most. But she had no idea that I knew, and that was my advantage. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to give her a chance to spin the story, to play the victim, to manipulate me into feeling guilty. Instead, I was going to make sure that when she left with nothing. So the next morning I called David. David was more than just my best friend. He was also a damn good financial lawyer. He answered on the second ring. "Mike, what's up?" I took a breath. "I need your help. Jen is cheating on me and she's planning to screw me over in the divorce." There was a pause. Then, "Come to my office. Now." I sat across from David in his office, my fingers tapping restlessly against the desk. He leaned back in his chair, eyes sharp as he scanned through the documents I had brought. "Jesus, Mike," he muttered. "She really thought she could get away with this?" I clenched my jaw. "She thinks I don't know." He nodded, thoughtful. "Okay. First thing we do is restructure your finances. On paper, you need to look as broke as possible. Move assets around. Prepay anything you can. Pay off business debts, reinvest into the company. We'll make sure when she comes for alimony, there's not much left to take. I exhaled slowly. How soon can we get that done? He smirked. Give me a week. In the meantime, I kept up appearances. I acted normal. I asked Jen about her day, listened as she lied straight to my face, and then one night, I found exactly what I needed. Her phone was charging on the kitchen counter when she went to take a shower. She never signed out of her accounts. So I picked it up, opened her messages, and scrolled. There it was. Everything. Texts between her and Eric, her little gym rat boyfriend. Messages about how she was waiting for the right time to leave me, about how she would push for alimony, about how I was so clueless that I wouldn't see it coming. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to myself. Then I put her phone back and walked away. 1 week later, David called. It's done, he said. Your financials look like shit, on paper at least. If she tries to take you to court, she won't be getting much. I closed my eyes, exhaling. Good. Now what's your next move? I smiled. I make her think she's winning. That night when I got home, Jen was sitting on the couch waiting for me. Her expression was carefully controlled, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. Mike, she said, her voice soft, rehearsed. We need to talk. I sat down across from her, forcing my face into a mask of confusion. What's up? She took a deep breath, as if this was difficult for her. I'm pregnant, she said. Then, after a pause, she added, but it's not yours. She said it like she was discussing the weather. No guilt, no hesitation. 5 years of marriage, discarded like trash. I stared at her for a long moment, my stomach twisting. Not from heartbreak, but from the sheer audacity. She wasn't just leaving me. She expected me to pay her to do it. Before I could respond, she delivered the final blow. I want a divorce, she said. And just so you know, you'll still be paying me alimony. I gave up my career for you. You owe me. I almost laughed. Instead, I leaned back, watching her. Then I said, Did you really think I wouldn't know about Eric? Her face went pale. I tilted my head. Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? Same apartment complex, same parking spot. You didn't even try to mix it up. Her jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. I smirked. Come on, Jen. Bible study runs late? Must be one hell of a lesson plan if it requires lingerie in a hotel room. She swallowed hard. I let the silence stretch. Then I stood up. Let me make something very clear. You are not taking a damn thing from me that I don't let you have. She tried to recover. She tried to play it cool. It's the law, Mike, she said, crossing her arms. You can fight it all you want, but you'll lose. I smiled, the smuggest, most infuriating smile I could manage. If you say so. The next few weeks were a game of chess. Jen moved out almost immediately, right into Eric's apartment. She filed for divorce, claiming irreconcilable differences, a fancy way of saying she wanted to screw around guilt-free. I met with lawyer after lawyer, most of them telling me the same thing. It's a no-fault divorce state. Her infidelity won't matter. But then I found Paul. Paul was different. He leaned back in his chair, skimming my financials, then glanced up at me. Interesting timing on some of these expenses, he said. I didn't respond. He smirked. Not saying you did anything illegal, but this might work in your favor. Then he leaned forward. But the courts might not care about her cheating. Her church, though? That's a different story. Jen's entire identity revolved around her church. She was a leader. She ran women's groups. Her father was a deacon. So I sent the elders a package. Inside were photos, texts, hotel receipts, even a recording of Jen mocking her church friends, calling them uptight prudes. I left it on their doorstep, and then I waited. The fallout was immediate. Sunday morning, my phone blew up. Dude, what the hell did you do? Jen is losing it. The pastor just called an emergency elder meeting. By the end of the week, she had been expelled from her ministry. Her father refused to look at her. Her entire social circle cut her off. Even Eric started backing away. By the following month, he had kicked her out. Now she was pregnant, alone, and broke. And I was free. But I wasn't done yet. A month after she moved out, Jen called me. I recognized the number immediately. For a second, I debated ignoring it, letting her stew in whatever mess she had made. But then I thought better of it. I wanted to hear it. I picked up. Her voice was small, almost fragile. Mike, can we talk? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Talk about what, Jen? There was silence on the other end, just the sound of her breathing. Then she said, I lost my job. I smirked. That sucks. She let out a shaky breath. The baby's due in 5 months. No one will hire me. My parents still won't talk to me. I said nothing. Finally, she whispered, I've been sleeping in my car. For a moment, I almost felt something. Not pity, not regret, just the faintest echo of what I used to feel for her. But then I remembered the texts. I remembered how she and Eric had laughed about how I wouldn't see it coming. So instead I just said, sounds like poor financial planning. She breathed sharply. Is this what you wanted? To see me completely destroyed? I considered it. Then I said, yeah, pretty much. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice so soft I almost didn't hear it, she said, I was stupid. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt you. I shut my eyes. Then I said, I don't care. She swallowed back a sob. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I smirked. Cool. Good luck with your new life. And then, just as I was about to hang up, an idea struck me. Something that would end this once and for all. Actually, I added, keeping my tone casual, I might have a solution that works for both of us. She hesitated. What kind of solution? I stretched, letting the silence build. Then I said, I'm tired of writing these monthly checks, and my business is expanding. I'm looking at opening an office in Singapore, might move there for a while. What does that have to do with me? She asked. I smiled. Well, international alimony enforcement is complicated. I let that sink in. And I've been talking to a new lawyer who thinks we might have grounds to revisit the settlement based on some creative interpretations of the law. That was a lie. But she didn't know that. Her breath hitched. What are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to buy you out. One lump sum instead of monthly alimony for the next 4 years. There was a pause. Then cautiously, how much? I pretended to think about it. 90,000, cash, tax-free. You sign a document releasing me from all future obligations, and the money's yours today. In reality, 90,000 was nothing, a fraction of what I would have paid her over 4 years. But to her, to someone pregnant, jobless, and living in a Walmart parking lot, it was a lifeline. She hesitated. I don't know. My lawyer said... I cut her off. Your lawyer isn't sleeping in a car. Silence. I could almost hear the wheels turning in her mind. Can I think about it? She asked. Sure. You've got until this time tomorrow. Then I start the process to challenge the alimony ruling. And if that happens, you get nothing while we fight it out in court for the next year or two. More silence. Then finally, I'll take it. I smiled. Smart choice. The next morning, she showed up at my lawyer's office looking like pure hell. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unkempt, wearing the same clothes I had seen through her car window. My lawyer had the paperwork ready. A full release of all future alimony obligations in exchange for a one-time payment. She barely read the contract before signing. When my lawyer slid the cashier's check across the table, her hands trembled as she took it. She looked up at me. So, that's it? We're done? I nodded. Completely done. I don't ever want to hear from you again. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something more, but then she just nodded, stood up, and walked out. As the door shut behind her, my lawyer shook his head. You know, most guys in your position wouldn't have offered her anything. I smirked. It was worth 90 grand to be free of her forever. And I meant it. The monthly payments hadn't hurt me financially, but they had been a constant reminder of how she had played me. Now I was free. 6 months later, I ran into her at a gas station. It wasn't planned, just one of those random things. She looked rough, still pregnant, or possibly pregnant again. I didn't ask, didn't care. She was driving a beat-up old Civic, not the sleek, expensive car she used to have. When she saw me standing there filling up my new BMW, she froze. I nodded to her. Just a polite acknowledgement, nothing more. She hesitated. Then slowly she walked over. There was an awkward pause, then she said, How are you? I shrugged. Business is good, life is good. She nodded, looking down at her feet. That's good." More silence. Then finally she whispered, "The money's gone." I didn't react, just kept pumping gas. "I had to pay off debt," she continued. "The rest went to rent and food." I just stared at her. "Not my problem." She let out a breath. "I know, I don't know why I'm telling you this." I finished fueling up, put the nozzle back, and started to get into my car. But then she spoke again. "I'm sorry, Mike, for everything. I really am." I looked at her for a long moment. Was it satisfying to see her like this? Honestly, not as much as I thought it would be. But did I feel bad for her? Not even a little. Too little, too late, Jen. And then I got in my car and drove away. My life moved forward. I met someone new. A woman who was strong, independent, successful in her own right. Someone who didn't play games. 3 months later, we moved in together. I wasn't in a rush to get married again, once bitten, twice shy, but for the first time in a long time, I could see a real future with someone. As for Jen, she had the baby, a boy. Eric, unsurprisingly, turned out to be a deadbeat. He skipped town, barely paid child support, and wanted nothing to do with her or the kid. Jen tried to go back to teaching, but no school would hire her. Her reputation followed her. She was stuck, alone, with nothing. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I got my pilot's license. I took up mountain biking. I started playing guitar. I was finally living my best life. Lesson learned. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing. You just have to be willing to burn the bridges that need to be burned and never look back. So, that's my story. It wasn't just about a cheating wife. It was about betrayal. About how someone you trust can spend years pretending to love you while planning to rip your life apart behind your back. But more than that, it was about taking control, about refusing to be a victim, about turning a situation where I was supposed to lose everything into a lesson, into an advantage, into a fresh start. The biggest lesson? Pay attention. People who betray you don't do it overnight. They leave breadcrumbs, little signs, the sudden secrecy, the change in behavior, the fake innocence. The moment you feel like something is off, trust your gut. The second lesson? Revenge is best served cold. If I had confronted her in anger, she would have twisted the story, made me the villain, turned everything into a screaming match. Instead, I stayed quiet, watched, planned, and struck when it mattered most. She thought she had me figured out. She had no idea I was 5 steps ahead. And the third? Never let betrayal define you. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, it made me question everything. But in the end, it pushed me towards something better. A better life. A better future. What about you? Have you ever been betrayed? Ever seen someone try to take advantage of you? If so, how did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your stories. And if you enjoyed this, if you want to hear more real stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's free, it helps out a lot, and it lets me keep bringing you stories that will leave you speechless. Also, don't forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear this lesson, because sometimes the best thing we can do is learn from someone else's mistakes. Until next time, take care, and always stay 3 steps ahead.